The rain hammered against the windshield as Sophia Chen pulled into the parking lot of the Willow Creek Cafe. She checked her reflection in the rearview mirror, smoothing down her emerald silk blouse and wondering why she had agreed to this. Her best friend Natalie had been relentless, insisting that Sophia needed to take a break from her endless board meetings and investor calls. Sophia had built Novatech from the ground up, transforming a small software startup into a billion-dollar empire in just 8 years. At 32, she had everything she had ever dreamed of: penthouse apartments in 3 cities, a private jet, and her face on the cover of Business Fortune magazine. Yet here she was, in the small Oregon town where she grew up. About to meet a complete stranger for coffee, the cafe looked exactly as she remembered it. With its weathered brick exterior and hand-painted signs swinging gently in the evening breeze, through the foggy windows, she could see warm amber light and the silhouettes of people huddled over steaming mugs. Taking a deep breath, Sophia stepped out into the rain. Inside, the aroma of fresh coffee and cinnamon rolls enveloped her. The walls were lined with local artwork and vintage photographs of the town. Sophia scanned the room until her eyes landed on a man sitting alone by the window. He stood as their eyes met, and she felt a strange flutter in her chest. He was tall, with dark hair slightly dampened by rain, and kind hazel eyes that seemed to look right through her expensive clothing to something deeper. He wore a simple navy sweater and jeans, nothing like the corporate executives she usually encountered. "Sophia?" he asked, his voice warm and familiar in a way she could not quite place. "Yes, you must be Daniel." She extended her hand professionally, but he took it gently, holding it a moment longer than necessary. "Thank you for coming," Daniel said, pulling out her chair. "I know blind dates can be awkward. That is an understatement." Sophia replied with a slight smile, settling into her seat. "My friend Natalie arranged this. She seems to think I need more balance in my life."
Oh, yeah.
Friends usually know us better than we know ourselves. The question that changed everything: they ordered coffee, and the conversation flowed more easily than Sophia had expected. Daniel was a veterinarian with a practice just outside town. He spoke passionately about his work, particularly his efforts to create a wildlife rehabilitation center. There was an authenticity about him that Sophia rarely encountered in her world of calculated smiles and strategic networking. "So you grew up here?" Daniel asked, cradling his coffee cup between his hands. "I did, though I left for college and never really looked back," Sophia admitted. "My family moved away when I was 16. We had to." Something flickered across Daniel's face, an expression she could not quite read. He leaned forward slightly, studying her features with an intensity that made her heart beat faster. "Sophia," he said quietly, "do you remember the winter of 2007? You would have been about 13, she frowned, taken aback by the specific question. "That was a long time ago." "Why do you ask?" "Do you remember the food bank at St. Catherine's Church? The blue building on Maple Street?" Sophia's breath caught. She had not thought about that place in years. It had been the winter her father's construction business collapsed, taking their savings with it. Her mother had worked 3 jobs, but it was not enough. They had gone to that food bank every Thursday evening, Sophia wearing her hood pulled low, terrified that her classmates might see her. "I remember," she said carefully, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel's eyes softened with an emotion she could not name. "There was a boy who volunteered there. He was 15, maybe 16. He always made sure to pack extra canned goods and fresh bread into your family's box when no one was looking." Sophia felt the room tilt slightly. She gripped the edge of the table. "That was you," she breathed. "You don't remember me specifically, do you?" Daniel asked gently. "That's okay. You were going through so much, but I remember you. I remember the girl who thanked everyone so politely, even when I could see how much it hurt her pride to be there. I remember how you always held your little brother's hand and made sure he got the juice boxes." Memories in the rain. Sophia's mind raced backward through time, trying to reconstruct those painful months. She had worked so hard to bury those memories, to build a new identity as someone who had never struggled, never needed help. But now, sitting across from this man, fragments began to resurface. She remembered a teenage boy with messy hair and a kind smile. He had always been the one to call their number, had always seemed to take extra care with their box. Once, when Sophia's little brother Tommy had been crying from hunger. The boy had slipped him a granola bar and a handful of colorful stickers. "You gave Tommy stickers," Sophia said suddenly. "Dinosaurs and rockets. He loved those." Daniel's face broke into a genuine smile. "You do remember? He was such a sweet kid. How is Tommy now?" "He is finishing medical school," Sophia said, still processing everything. "He wants to work in pediatrics. He always remembered how people helped us during that time. It shaped who he became. And you?" Daniel asked softly. "How did it shape you?" Sophia looked down at her hands, at the diamond ring she wore on her right hand as a symbol of her success. "It made me determined never to be in that position again. Never to be powerless or dependent on anyone's kindness." "Is that why you built Novatech? You know about that?" "Sophia, everyone knows about Novatech. When Natalie told me who she was setting me up with, I almost canceled. I thought there was no way the Sophia Chen would be the same girl I remembered." "Why did you not cancel?" Sophia asked. Daniel held her gaze. "Because I never forgot you. In all these years, I wondered what happened to that brave girl and her family. When I heard you were coming back to town, I hoped I might get a chance to see if you were okay. To see if that kindness in your eyes was still there, despite everything you must have been through." The weight of the past Sophia felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. She never cried. She had trained herself out of that weakness years ago. But something about Daniel's words, about being seen not for what she had accomplished, but for who she had been, cracked something open inside her. "I don't know if I am that person anymore," she admitted. "I have worked so hard to become someone else. Someone stronger." "Or maybe," Daniel suggested, "you have always been strong? You just have different armor now." They talked for 3 more hours, long after the cafe should have closed. The owner, an elderly woman named Grace, simply smiled and brought them fresh coffee. Seeming to understand that something important was happening at that corner table, Daniel told Sophia about his own struggles. His parents had divorced when he was young, and his mother had raised him and his sister alone. Volunteering at the food bank had been his way of processing his own family's difficulties. Helping others had helped him find purpose. When they finally stepped outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets glistening under the streetlights. Sophia wrapped her coat tighter around herself, not from cold, but from the vulnerability she felt. "Can I see you again?" Daniel asked, his voice hopeful but uncertain. Sophia hesitated. She was supposed to return to San Francisco in 2 days. She had meetings, presentations, a whole empire that needed her attention. But looking at Daniel, at this connection to a past she had tried so hard to escape, she felt something she had not felt in years. Curiosity about something other than business. "I would like that," she heard herself say, as Daniel walked her to her car. Sophia realized that this blind date had become something far more complicated than she had ever imagined. It was not just about meeting someone new. It was about confronting who she used to be and deciding whether that girl still had anything to teach the woman she had become. Sophia woke the next morning in her hotel room with sunlight streaming through the curtains and Daniel's number saved in her phone. She stared at it for a long moment before typing out a message. "Are you free today? I would like to see more of the town. It has been so long." His response came within minutes. "I would love to show you around. Pick you up at 10? She spent longer than usual choosing her outfit, finally settling on dark jeans and a soft cashmere sweater in pale blue. When she caught herself checking her reflection for the 3rd time, she laughed at herself. When had she become nervous about impressing someone? Daniel arrived precisely at 10 in a well-worn pickup truck that had clearly seen better days. He hopped out to open her door, and Sophia found herself charmed by the old-fashioned gesture. "First stop," Daniel announced as they drove through the familiar streets, "is somewhere I think you need to see." They pulled up in front of St. Catherine's Church. The blue building that had housed the food bank looked smaller than Sophia remembered, but it was freshly painted and well-maintained. A new sign out front read, "Community Resource Center, all welcome." They expanded it 5 years ago, Daniel explained as they walked toward the entrance. Now it offers job training, tutoring for kids, and counseling services. Not just food anymore. Inside, volunteers bustled around organizing donations. A young woman with bright pink hair greeted Daniel with a warm hug. "Daniel, we were not expecting you today." "And who is this?" "This is Sophia," he said simply. "I wanted to show her how much things have grown." As they toured the facility, Sophia felt a complex mix of emotions washing over her. This place had once represented her family's lowest point. But now, seeing how it had evolved into something more comprehensive and dignified, she saw it differently. It was not just about charity. It was about community, about people helping each other through difficult seasons. My mother still talks about this place, Sophia said quietly, as they stood in what had once been the distribution area. She says the volunteers here saved us. Not just with food, but with their kindness. They never made us feel ashamed. Daniel nodded. That was always the goal. My mother ran this program for years. She taught me that dignity matters as much as the help itself. Secrets of the past, they spent the afternoon driving through town, stopping at places that held memories for both of them. The old elementary school where Sophia had won the science fair in 5th grade. The park where she used to take Tommy to play when her mother was working. The library where she had spent countless hours reading, dreaming of a bigger life. At each stop, Daniel shared his own memories, and Sophia began to see the town through new eyes. It was not just the place she had fled from. It was a community full of people who had known her, helped her, and remembered her. They had lunch at a small diner on Main Street. As they slid into a booth, an older woman approached their table, her face lighting up with recognition. Sophia Martinez. Is that really you? The woman's eyes were bright with tears. I was your mother's manager at the grocery store. How is Rosa doing? She is wonderful, Sophia replied, standing to embrace the woman. She lives in Portland now, close to my brother. And look at you. We heard about your success. The whole town is so proud. Your mother was one of the hardest workers I ever had. She never complained, even when I know things were so difficult. After the woman left, Daniel studied Sophia's face. You changed your last name? It was not a question, but Sophia nodded anyway. Chen is my stepfather's name. He married my mother when I was 18. He helped pay for my college, treated Tommy and me like his own children. Taking his name felt right. It also felt like a fresh start. Do you ever regret it? Leaving Martinez behind. Sophia stirred her coffee thoughtfully. Sometimes it feels like I erased part of my history. But I was so desperate to reinvent myself, to become someone who had not struggled. Now I wonder if that was a mistake. If I lost something important in the process. Veterinary clinic that evening, Daniel took Sophia to his veterinary clinic. It was a modest building on the edge of town, but it was clear that he had poured his heart into it. The waiting room was painted in cheerful colors with murals of animals on the walls. A bulletin board displayed photos of rescued animals who had found homes. This is where I spend most of my time, Daniel said, leading her through to the examination rooms. And out back is the rehabilitation center I have been building. Behind the clinic was a series of enclosures and specially designed habitats. Daniel explained his vision as they walked, a place where injured wildlife could recover before being released back into nature, where abandoned domestic animals could receive medical care and behavioral training, where local children could learn about animal welfare and conservation. It is almost ready, he said, his face glowing with passion. We just need funding for the final phase. Medical equipment, hiring staff, building the education center. I have been applying for grants, but it is slow going. Sophia watched him as he checked on a young deer recovering from a leg injury. His hands were gentle but confident, and he spoke softly to the animal, calming it with his presence. This was someone who had found his purpose, who measured success not in dollars but in lives saved and healed. How much do you need? She asked suddenly. Daniel turned to her, surprised. What? For the final phase? How much funding do you need? Sophia, I did not bring you here to ask for money. That is not what this is about. I know that, she said firmly, but I'm asking anyway. Tell me about your budget. A difficult conversation. They sat in his small office as Daniel pulled out spreadsheets and plans. He had thought through every detail. Construction costs, equipment purchases, operating expenses for the first year. The total amount needed was substantial, but not impossible. As Sophia reviewed the documents, her business mind kicked into gear. She could see the potential, but she could also see the risks. This was a passion project, not a profit-driven enterprise. It would require ongoing funding, community support, and someone willing to pour their life into it. I could write you a check tomorrow, Sophia said finally. Cover everything you need and more. But I'm not sure that is the right answer. Daniel leaned back in his chair, studying her. Why not? Because money can solve immediate problems, but it does not build sustainable solutions. If I just hand you funding, what happens when that runs out? You would be dependent on my continued support or constantly searching for the next donor. So what are you suggesting? Sophia took a deep breath. Let me think about this strategically. Maybe there is a way to structure this as a social enterprise. Generate revenue through educational programs, partnerships with schools, maybe even ecotourism. Make it sustainable long-term while staying true to your mission. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "You see everything as a business problem to solve, don't you?" The words stung, though his tone was not unkind. Sophia felt herself pulling back, her defenses rising. I see problems, and I look for solutions. That is what I am good at. I thought I was trying to help. You are, Daniel said quickly, reaching across the desk to touch her hand. I am sorry. That came out wrong. It is just that sometimes the most valuable thing is not the solution. It is someone who believes in the dream. Sophia felt tears burning in her eyes again. I do believe in it. In you. But I also know how hard it is to keep something like this going. I have built a company from nothing. I know what it takes, and I appreciate that truly. Daniel squeezed her hand gently. But maybe what I need right now is not a business consultant. Maybe I just need a friend who understands why this matters. The call that changed everything, they drove back to Sophia's hotel in comfortable silence. As Daniel walked her to the entrance, he said, Thank you for today. For seeing all of this? For seeing me? Thank you for showing me, Sophia replied. For helping me remember who I used to be? You are still that person, Daniel said softly. You just have more resources now to make a difference. They stood close together in the warm evening air, and Sophia felt the pull toward him, the desire to close the distance between them. But before either could move, her phone rang with the sharp, insistent tone she reserved for urgent business calls. She glanced at the screen. Her CFO, Richard. I am sorry. I have to take this. Daniel nodded and stepped back, giving her space. Richard, what is it? Sophia answered, already knowing it would not be good news. We have a problem. The merger with TechCore is falling apart. Their board is getting cold feet, and our stock price is dropping. We need you back in San Francisco immediately. There is a meeting tomorrow morning at 8. Sophia closed her eyes. This merger had been in the works for 6 months. It would expand Novatech into new markets and secure their position as industry leaders. It was worth billions. I will be on the first flight out, she said automatically, when she hung up. Daniel was watching her with understanding in his eyes. You have to go. There is a crisis with a major deal. I'm sorry, I thought I had more time. Don't apologize. This is your life. I get it. But Sophia could hear the disappointment beneath his words, and it mirrored her own. Daniel, this week has been incredible. Seeing you again, remembering all of this, it has meant more to me than I can express. But your real life is in San Francisco, he finished for her. It is not like that. It is just that I have responsibilities. People depending on me. A company to run, Daniel smiled sadly. And I am not asking you to choose between your life and whatever this is between us. I am just sorry we did not have more time to figure it out. Sophia wanted to argue, to explain, to make him understand. But she also knew he was right. Her life was in the city, filled with meetings and decisions and constant demands. His life was here, rooted in this small town and the dreams he was building. They existed in different worlds. Can I call you? She asked, hating how uncertain she sounded. Of course, anytime. They hugged goodbye. And Sophia held on perhaps a moment too long, breathing in the scent of him, trying to memorize the feeling of his arms around her. Then she pulled away and walked into the hotel without looking back, afraid that if she did, she would not be able to leave at all. San Francisco greeted Sophia with its usual intensity. The merger meetings consumed 3 grueling days of negotiations, legal reviews, and strategic planning. She barely slept, surviving on coffee and adrenaline, doing what she did best, solving problems and making deals. The merger was saved. TechCore's board was satisfied, the stock price stabilized, and Novatech was positioned for unprecedented growth. Sophia should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt hollow. She stood in her penthouse apartment overlooking the bay, surrounded by luxury and success, Thought about Daniel's small office, filled with animal care plans and dreams of rehabilitation centers. She thought about the way he had looked at her, not at her accomplishments or her wealth, but at her. Her phone buzzed constantly with congratulations from colleagues and investors. But the message she kept rereading was a simple text from Daniel. Saw the news about your merger? Congratulations. Hope you are taking care of yourself. Sophia typed in deleted responses a dozen times before finally settling on, thank you. How is the deer doing? His response came quickly. She is healing well. Should be able to release her back to the wild next week. Wish you could be here to see it. Me too, Sophia typed back, and realized she meant it more than she had meant anything in a long time. The board. Meeting 2 weeks after returning to San Francisco, Sophia sat in Novatech's gleaming conference room for a quarterly board meeting. She presented growth projections, discussed expansion strategies, and fielded questions about the company's direction. It was all familiar, all comfortable, all exactly what she had worked for. Then one of the board members, an older woman named Patricia Wong, asked an unexpected question. Sophia, where do you see yourself in 5 years? It was a standard question, but something about the way Patricia asked it made Sophia pause. Usually, she would have a polished answer ready about market leadership and innovation. But today, the words stuck in her throat. I'm not sure, she admitted, surprising herself and everyone in the room. I have always focused on the next quarter, the next deal, the next milestone. But lately I have been thinking about what success really means. Whether there is more to it than just growth and profits. Patricia nodded thoughtfully. I wondered when you might start asking those questions. You have built something remarkable here, Sophia. But companies can run themselves with the right team in place. The question is, what do you want to build with your life? The meeting concluded, but Patricia's words lingered with Sophia. That evening, instead of working late as usual, she took a walk through Golden Gate Park. The city was beautiful in the fading light, vibrant and alive. But she found herself thinking about the quiet streets of Willow Creek, the way the rain had sounded on the cafe roof, the warmth in Daniel's eyes. A call for help late that night. Sophia's phone rang. She almost did not answer when she saw it was an unfamiliar Willow Creek number. But something made her pick up. Sophia. This is Grace from the cafe. I got your number from Daniel's phone. I am so sorry to call so late, but there has been an accident. Sophia's heart stopped. What happened? Is Daniel okay? He was out rescuing an injured owl from someone's property when he fell. Broke his leg badly and has a concussion. He is stable, but he is going to be laid up for weeks. The problem is, there is no one to run the clinic. His assistant is on maternity leave, and without him, they will have to close temporarily. The animals have nowhere to go. Sophia was already pulling out her laptop, searching for flights. I will be there tomorrow morning. Tell Daniel not to worry about anything. Bless you, dear. I will let him know. Sophia did not sleep that night. She sent emails to her executive team, delegating responsibilities and clearing her calendar. Richard called her at 6 a.m, concerned. Sophia, you cannot just leave in the middle of everything. The board will question your priorities. Then let them question, Sophia said calmly. I have spent 8 years building this company, Richard. I think it can survive a few weeks without me hovering over every decision. And if it cannot, then we have bigger problems than my absence. Return to Willow Creek. Daniel was asleep when Sophia arrived at the hospital. His leg elevated in traction and a bandage wrapped around his head. She stood in the doorway, watching his chest rise and fall, felt a wave of emotion so intense it nearly brought her to her knees. This man had remembered her when she was nothing. He had seen value in her when she was just a scared girl taking charity food. And he had recognized her all these years later, not because she was successful, but because that same person was still inside her, hidden beneath layers of ambition and armor. When Daniel's eyes fluttered open, they found her immediately. Sophia, what are you doing here? Grace called me. I came as soon as I could. She moved to his bedside, taking his hand carefully. How are you feeling? Like I fell 15 feet onto concrete, he said with a weak smile. But better now that you are here. You did not have to come all this way. Yes, I did. Sophia squeezed his hand gently. Grace told me about the clinic. I am going to run it while you recover. Daniel stared at her. You are going to what? Run your clinic. I mean, I will need help from your staff, and I might not be great with the actual medical procedures. But I can handle scheduling, administration, coordinating care. It is not that different from running a company. Sophia, you cannot just put your life on hold for this. For me, she sat on the edge of his bed, careful not to jostle his leg. Daniel, do you want to know what I have been thinking about for the past 2 weeks? Every single day in San Francisco, in the middle of meetings and negotiations, I kept wondering why I felt so empty. I have everything I thought I wanted. But when I am with you, when I am in Willow Creek, I feel something I have not felt since I was that 13-year-old girl who still believed in kindness and community. I feel like myself. Tears pooled in Daniel's eyes. You do not have to save me, or the clinic. That is not why I wanted to reconnect with you. I know. But maybe you saved me first, all those years ago. And maybe it is time I returned the favor. Building something new, the next 6 weeks were the most challenging and rewarding of Sophia's life. She moved into a small rental house in Willow Creek and threw herself into learning everything about running a veterinary practice. Daniel's lead technician, a patient woman named Jennifer, became her guide and mentor. Sophia discovered she had a knack for organizing chaos. She streamlined the appointment system, negotiated better rates with suppliers, and created a volunteer program that brought in local teenagers to help with animal care. She even learned to assist with basic procedures. Though she drew the line at anything involving surgery, word spread quickly that Sophia Chen was working at the local vet clinic. And soon reporters started calling, wanting to do stories about the tech billionaire who had become a temporary vet assistant. Sophia declined all interviews. This was not about publicity. It was about showing up for someone who mattered. In the evenings, she would visit Daniel, who was recovering at home now. They would sit on his porch, going over the day's cases, planning for the rehabilitation center, and talking about everything and nothing. Slowly, without either of them quite noticing when it happened, their friendship deepened into something more. One evening, as they watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, Daniel said, I have been thinking about what you said, about structuring the rehabilitation center as a social enterprise. And I think you were right. I was so focused on the mission that I did not think practically about sustainability. Would you help me develop a real business plan? Sophia smiled. I would love to, but only if you promise to keep me grounded in the mission. I need someone to remind me why we are doing this, not just how. Deal. Daniel reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. Sophia, I need to tell you something. That winter when I met you at the food bank, you changed my life. Watching your family go through such hardship with so much dignity, seeing your mother work so hard, seeing you take care of your brother despite your own struggles, it showed me what real strength looked like. You inspired me to become someone who helps others. You always have been my inspiration. Sophia felt tears streaming down her face. I spent so many years trying to forget that girl, to become someone different, someone stronger. You were always strong. You just needed time to see it yourself. 3 months after arriving back in Willow Creek, Sophia sat in her rental house with her laptop open, staring at a document. It was her resignation letter as CEO of Novatech. She had spent weeks discussing the transition with her board and executive team. Richard would become CEO, something he was more than ready for. Sophia would remain as board chair, providing strategic guidance without the day-to-day demands. It was the right move for the company and for her. But still, hitting send on that email felt monumental. It meant admitting that the life she had built, while impressive, was not the life she wanted anymore. Her phone rang. It was her mother. Mia, are you sure about this? You have worked so hard for Novatech. I'm sure, Mama. I am not giving it up completely. I am just making space for other things. For a different kind of life? Her mother was quiet for a moment. You sound happy? Really happy. I have not heard that in your voice for a long time. I am happy. I am building something here. With Daniel, with the community. It feels right, and I am proud of you. Not for what you have accomplished, Mia, though that is amazing, but for knowing when to let go and choose joy. After hanging up, Sophia walked to Daniel's house. He was in his workshop, building enclosures for the rehabilitation center. His leg finally healed enough to move around with just a slight limp. I sent the letter, she announced. Daniel set down his tools and turned to her. How do you feel? Terrified, excited, free. She laughed. Is that possible? With you, anything seems possible. He pulled her into his arms. So what now? Now, we build this center together. I am thinking we can launch the educational programs first, partner with the local schools, then phase in the wildlife rehabilitation as we get the proper permits. I have been talking to some foundations about grants, and I think we can get corporate sponsorships too. Daniel pulled back to look at her face. You have thought this all through. I have. But I want to make sure you are comfortable with me being so involved. This is your dream, Daniel. I do not want to take over. Sophia, you are not taking over. You are joining me in building something neither of us could create alone. That is what partnership means. Partnership, Sophia repeated, liking the sound of it. I like that. Good, because I have another partnership to propose. Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. I know it has only been a few months since we reconnected, but I have known you in some way for almost 20 years. I loved the girl who held her little brother's hand and said, "Thank you," even when accepting help hurt her pride. And I love the woman who left her billion-dollar company to help run a small-town vet clinic. Sophia Chen, would you marry me? Sophia looked at the ring, a simple band with a small, perfect diamond, and then at Daniel's hopeful face. She thought about the girl she had been and the woman she had become. She thought about the life she had built in San Francisco and the life she was building here. She thought about all the versions of herself and how they were finally coming together into something whole. Yes, she whispered. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Epilogue. 1 year later, the grand opening of the Willow Creek Wildlife Rehabilitation and Education Center drew over 500 people. Children ran through the nature trails while their parents toured the facilities. Local news crews interviewed Daniel about his vision, and national media covered the story of how tech billionaire Sophia Chen had left Silicon Valley to build something meaningful in a small Oregon town. But Sophia barely noticed the cameras. She was too busy watching a young girl no more than 10 years old press her face against the glass of the enclosure where an injured red-tailed hawk was recovering. Will she be able to fly again? The girl asked, her eyes wide with concern. She will, Sophia assured her. It will take time and care, but she is going to heal. And when she is ready, we will release her back into the wild where she belongs. The girl smiled. That is amazing. I want to do what you do when I grow up. Sophia knelt down to the girl's level. Then study hard, be kind, and never forget that helping others is the best kind of success. As the girl ran off to join her family, Daniel appeared at Sophia's side, slipping his arm around her waist. That was beautiful. You're going to inspire a whole new generation. I hope so. Someone once inspired me, even when I did not realize it at the time. They stood together, watching as their dream came to life around them. The rehabilitation center was just the beginning. They had plans for educational programs, conservation initiatives, and community outreach. Sophia had even started a foundation to help other small towns develop similar projects. Using her business expertise and resources to create lasting change, Tommy arrived with his girlfriend, both of them wearing matching volunteer shirts. Sophia, Daniel, this place is incredible. I am so proud of you both. We're proud of you too, Dr. Martinez, Daniel said, shaking his hand. How is your residency going? As Tommy launched into stories about his pediatric work, Sophia looked around at the community that had gathered. Her mother and stepfather chatting with Daniel's sister, Grace from the cafe serving refreshments, Patricia Wong from the Novatech board who had flown in to support the opening, Jennifer and the vet clinic staff managing the crowd. All these people, connected by kindness and community and belief in something bigger than themselves. Don't you remember me? Those words had changed everything. They had forced Sophia to look backward, to remember who she had been before success and wealth had redefined her. But more importantly, they had helped her look forward with new eyes, seeing possibilities she had never imagined. She had thought success meant building an empire, making millions, seeing her name in headlines, and she had done all of that. But real success, she had learned, was building a life that mattered. It was choosing connection over achievement, community over conquest, love over ambition. Or maybe, just maybe, it was realizing you could have all of those things, as long as you remembered what truly mattered. As the sun set over Willow Creek, painting the sky in brilliant colors, Sophia took Daniel's hand and smiled. She had come home not just to a place, but to herself. And that was the greatest success of all. The Indief, this story touched your heart. Imagine how many others are waiting to be told. Sometimes the greatest adventures are not about going somewhere new, but about returning to where we started and seeing it with fresh eyes. Love does not always arrive with grand gestures. Sometimes it whispers through old memories and quiet promises. Remember to cherish the connections that shape who you become. And never forget that kindness always comes back to us, often when we need it most.